Hey guys, Liz here, and I'm excited because today I'm going to start a 5-week series regarding retention issues. Retention, whether you call it lifting, chipping, peeling, bubbling, having issues with product lasting, however you want to refer to it, all of that kind of falls under the umbrella of retention. And the goal in us learning about this is to help improve the longevity of our services. I would say that retention is probably one of the number one concerns that people have when it comes to using a product or even just developing their skill set. And it's something that we constantly combat, whether we're super experienced professionals or we're brand new newbies. It's just one of those things that literally consumes our entire life when we're talking about nail products. So I'm going to be covering today the importance of nail prep. Now, this is a subject that has been beaten to death, and you'll see a ton of videos about talking about how to actually, do cuticle work and how to prep the nail and all of the different products you might need. And there's people that spend hours focusing on nail prep and still have retention issues. So I'm going to break down some really key important things that you guys need to look for when you're doing your nail prep, what to focus on, what maybe to let go of, because we can also get hyper obsessed with nail prep. And it can be something that's very time consuming, especially if we're trying to make our services efficient and something that we can complete in a reasonable amount of time, right? So let's get down to how we're actually going to improve our nail prep, things we're going to add, things we're going to subtract. And all of this, I hope, is going to help you get longer time frames out of your service durability and also eliminate a lot of those common issues like peeling, chipping, and all of that. All right, so let's get into it. All right, when it comes to nail prep, there are 3 key categories that we need to make sure we cover. The first one is we want to push back skin to reveal the maximum amount of nail plate possible, as well as remove any dried cuticle or any other debris that might be on the nail plate. The second part of the puzzle is we want to etch the nail plate. We want to add texture to the nail plate while also removing shine. A lot of people confuse etching with just shine removal. So a lot of people will reach for something like a sponge buffer to prep their nails before gel application or any type of artificial product application. And it's because they usually think this is a gentler way to do it. It's also spongy, it feels good. It's one of those things where it's easier to achieve shine removal with a sponge buffer. And a lot of people reach for this first. I want you guys to actually ditch the sponge buffer, and I want you to focus on either using our Attain metal nail file or a regular 100, 180 grit nail file like the ones we have at the Nail Hub, okay? So etching is super important. We'll talk about that in a second. The third key part of nail prep is killing bacteria and stripping surface oils. We do this with cleansing wipes as well as our cleanser, and I'll talk about not only how to do this, but also how you can make your own cleanser or what to look for in cleansers that you're purchasing, because it does make a huge difference when it comes to retention. Okay, so here is a nail that has regrown a little bit. You can see that I have already the beginnings of some dead cuticle here, and my cuticle skin, my proximal nail fold has grown out a little bit, so it needs to get pushed back before I do anything. Now, I'm not going to do color removal today to show you exactly how to do this, but I am going to show you how to actually just prep around my blue gel polish and show you some key things that you can do to increase your effective nail prep. So first step is we're going to wash our hands with some soap and warm water to get rid of any dirt, debris, bacteria. It's also a good idea to scrub under your nails or have your clients scrub under their nails while washing with soap and water. This makes sure that their nails are nice and clean, 360 degrees. And we can also, if you have the washing the hands is going to remove a lot of surface oils, like if you had lotion on, cuticle oil, something like that. But we can also cleanse our nails before we start nail prep, just to make sure that we're not pushing any surface oils and embedding them into our nail plate while we're prepping, as well as kill bacteria one more time. So this is an optional step. You can cleanse your nails with some cleanser and a nail wipe before you start any of your nail prep. But if you're washing your hands, that's a great place to start. So with my cuticle pusher, the idea behind a cuticle pusher is that we're not only going to push back the skin nice and gently to expose the maximum amount of nail plate possible, but we're also going to try and scrape off any dead cuticle that might be on the nail plate too. Now, a lot of people will do this really fast, or they'll kind of do this swooping motion. I recommend you slow down your pushing. You just gently push back in nice, even pressure all the way around your nail plate, because it's going to help gently release that skin without separating it from your nail plate, and it's going to eliminate the risk of you causing damage. The other thing too that's important to mention is the angle of your cuticle pusher. Obviously, I have product on my nails, so I can't make it super flat, but make sure that you're not pushing down into your nail plate. You want to actually just push back into the skin like so. And it's just a nice, gentle pressure that we're using just to get that nail plate exposed for product application. Then I can switch my cuticle pusher around and I can use the blade side to go along and scrape that nail plate to get rid of any dried cuticle. Now, I want you guys to think about the last time you went to the dentist and the dentist was using a little tool to scrape off plaque and tartar from your teeth. That is exactly what I want you guys to imagine. So we're going to use a little bit of pressure, but we're going to be gentle at the same time because we don't want to overwork our natural nail and we don't want to make our cuticle area bleed, just like you don't want your dental hygienist to make your gums bleed while they're working. So nice and gentle, making sure we get below that proximal nail fold line a little bit, just like you get below the gum line when you brush. We're going to make sure we get all of that scraped out. And that is going to help us eliminate a lot of that dead tissue that gets attached to our nail plate as it grows out, which is what cuticle actually is. Then you can dust everything off a little bit with a dust brush if you want to, or you can use one of your wipes and cleanser. But you can see just with my cuticle pusher, I was able to get most of that skin back and get that dried cuticle off of my nail plate. Now, step 2 of this that's really important is talking about the difference between etching the nail plate and removing shine. Most people will reach for a sponge buffer. Most people will reach for a sponge buffer when they think about prepping their nail plate. And I would encourage you to ditch the sponge buffers and instead reach for an actual nail file, whether it be our Attain metal nail file or a regular nail file like this that we have from the Nail Hub 100, 180 grit nail file. This is going to do a much better job of removing not only shine, but creating that etched texture that we need in order for product to properly adhere. I'll show you a quick picture of the difference between someone who was buffing their nails versus etching their nails. This is actually a DIYer that I worked with to show them the difference in how they could change their nail prep to get more longevity out of their services. The idea behind etching our nail plate is that we only want to have to etch a given area of our nail plate once. If we properly etch the nail plate and we prepare it, we're going to get great adhesion of our product. And that way, if we go to backfill our product, which I'm a big advocate for teaching about overlays, instead of constant soak off and reapplication, I like to teach people how to backfill their product, whether you're a beginning DIYer or you're a more advanced user. Overlays are a great way to maintain product on your nail, maintain a protective layer of product on your nail, and simply change color on top so that we're not constantly touching our natural nail plate repeatedly. I love to use the analogy of hair color. Now, I haven't dyed my hair in years, but I used to. And if you've ever dyed your hair, you will know that when you have your hair grow out, all you do is touch up the roots of your hair color. You don't strip out all of the color and all of the product that you have in the rest of your hair simply to replace the color. You only touch up the roots. The idea with overlays on our nails is the same. Rather than causing excess stress and dryness to our hair by constantly removing and replacing things, the same thing happens to our nail plates. By constantly removing everything and reapplying, we can inadvertently cause a lot of damage to the point that we need to take breaks from nail product because our nails get so thin that they can't even hold on to anything. So if we focus on overlays, that allows us to focus on properly prepping our nails and focusing on only prepping that given area of the nail once so that we aren't constantly removing nails of that precious keratin, which we only have so many layers to work with on any given nail plate, okay? So nail prep is a key And this etching is a key in actually preventing a lot of damage to your nail plate, as well as making sure you're going to get the maximum amount of longevity out of any given service that you do. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my nail file and I'm going to go in and I'm going to actually scratch up the surface of my nail plate. If you're using the Attain nail file, there's two sides to the nail file. There's one that has this star pattern that's about the equivalent of 180 grit. And then we have this other side that has kind of this semicircle ellipse pattern. And this is more equivalent to about 100, 120 grit. I love this thing just because it's reusable. It's nice and thin and it doesn't have sharp edges. So I'm able to get really tight in my sidewalls and my cuticle area without cutting. And it also allows me to do great finish filing and other things that I love. But you can also use a regular nail file. You can use the 100 grit side of a nail file to do the exact same thing. So I'm going to take my nail file and again, I'm going to get down into the sidewall and I'm just going to kind of create this like circular motion to just kind of scratch up that surface level of my nail plate. And I can also use this to push back the skin one more time to just get in there, make sure I get all of that etched and prepped, okay? So you can see I just scratched up mainly this perimeter of my gel as well as this area. And then last but not least, once we've made sure that we have etched the sidewalls, any regrowth, and again, if you're on a virgin nail, you're going to do the whole nail plate, including the free edge, just like that picture that I showed you between the difference between buffing and etching. You want your whole nail plate to look lightly scratched from cuticle to free edge and from sidewall to sidewall. The last key step is that we're going to cleanse our nail, and this is going to kill bacteria as well as dehydrate our nail if we have the right cleanser. So this cleanser is our Attain Clean Cleanser. It's a mix of isopropyl alcohol and acetone, and this is going to kill bacteria with that isopropyl alcohol, and it's also going to strip any oils as well as get rid of any surface water. It's going to really help to dehydrate my nail plate with a little bit of that acetone. So when you cleanse your nail, you want to actually get in there and I want you to pretend like you're removing the most stubborn red nail polish you've ever used in your life and that it's all over your skin and you want to get all of it off. And so you're going to use some pressure and really scrub, scrub, scrub and make sure that you get all of that area clean. Then you're going to let your nail plate completely dry and your finger should look ugly at this point. It should look dry, chalky. Your skin should look dry. We can always re-add moisture after we get product on. And you can spend hours doing cuticle work and all of that. But honestly, these are the 3 key steps to getting the most longevity out of any product that you apply. And it's going to make a huge difference. So you can see I have a nice etched natural nail. I haven't made any divots or any rings of fire or anything. I've got the skin pushed back. I've got no cuticle on the nail plate. And if you want to do one more extra piece, one thing that I like to do right before I go to put my product on, because our skin does relax a little bit as we're working and as we're prepping other steps, you can actually take a wipe with some cleanser, wrap it around the end of your cuticle pusher, and right before you go to put your first layer of product on, you can just gently push the skin back one more time with that cleanser and that wipe, and it's gonna really help to make sure you get an extra clean surface to apply that product on with the maximum nail plate exposure. It's important to mention that not all nail cleansers are created equal. A lot of nail cleansers, gel nail cleansers, things like that, they have a ton of additives in them. They have scents, perfumes, colors, and all of those things can add residue to our nail, which can impede things from actually adhering to our nail plate. Same thing goes for cuticle removers. I'm not a big fan of using a bunch of cuticle remover before I do any type of gel application. I find that dry manicuring, just like I've shown you, is one of the best techniques to get the best results out of your product application. I highly recommend Attain Clean Cleanser. It is exactly what I mentioned, which is it's just a mix of isopropyl alcohol and some acetone, and it's going to kill bacteria and remove surface oils. But you can also make cleanser at home if you would like to. So whatever container or pump that you're using for your cleanser, you're going to fill it 3/4 of the way with 70%, anywhere between 70% and 90% isopropyl alcohol. The important part is to not go above 90 or 91, and that is because 99% isopropyl alcohol, which is one of the most popular other percentages that you can find besides the other two. 99% evaporates too quickly to effectively kill surface bacteria. So it's overkill in that case. It's not actually going to do its job. So I recommend sticking with something in the 70% ballpark, or going up to 90 or 91 if you can't find 70% alcohol. It's going to be cheaper and it's going to do the trick for what you need. So 3/4 of that container is going to be that isopropyl alcohol, rubbing alcohol, however you want to call it. Sometimes it's called isopropanol. And then you're going to add that extra quarter of your bottle or your pump. You're going to add straight acetone, not nail polish remover, not anything that's been diluted or has additives in it, just straight old acetone. And I recommend getting acetone from an actual beauty supply or beauty supply source. It's going to be higher grade, higher quality acetone than if you got it at a hardware store, for example. Okay, so here's my recipe on how to create your own gel nail cleanser if you would like to do that. Okay, so since I have product on my nails, I'm going to use Herman's nails to show you on a virgin nail how to actually do this same prep process, because I feel like this is a very important view for you to see starting from a completely fresh nail. So at first glance, what we can do is assess just the health of the nail, but like I mentioned with the cuticle pusher, we want to actually push back this skin to create maximum nail plate exposure and as much of a uniform cuticle area as possible. So we're just gently pushing back that proximal nail fold. And if I rotate to the side, since Herman doesn't have any product on, I can show you how the angle of this cuticle pusher is actually going to be. So we need to actually go a little bit angled, because if we go completely flat, we're going to miss his proximal nail fold, right? So you're going to angle your cuticle pusher so that you make good contact with the nail plate and you make good contact with that proximal nail fold, but don't dig in at such an angle that you're scraping the nail plate or that you're also getting up underneath that skin. We don't want to put pressure on the nail plate or on this matrix area. We just want to use that blunt end of our cuticle pusher to push everything back. Okay, so if I'm doing this, I'm just doing it nice and gentle. And again, using my cuticle pusher a little bit just to see if there's any dried cuticle that's on the nail plate. You can see Herman has pretty moisturized, nice skin. So when you look at his nails, it doesn't look like he has any dead cuticle on his nail plate. But once you start cleaning his nail plate, you start to see that there is, in fact, some dead skin and debris. So then I can use the blade side to go around and scrape off any of that tissue. Again, just light pressure. And I really do love that analogy of your dental hygienist using their little metal tools to scrape off any plaque from your teeth, you know, and avoiding cutting your gums or irritating your gums. It's the same idea. We want to pretend like we're a little dental hygienist, cleaning all of this debris off, getting the nail nice and clean, but without causing any injury to the surrounding tissue or to the nail plate itself, okay? So that's good. Then I can dust off the nail just to kind of assess how much of that material I've been able to remove. And now I'm going to actually etch this nail plate. So you can see Herman has completely virgin nails. They haven't been buffed or etched at all. They have all their natural shine, all their natural ridges. So this is where you guys are really going to see the difference between a nail that has regrowth and a nail that actually is completely virgin nail plate. So as I showed you guys before, you can take your metal nail file if you're using the Attain nail file. I love this one because you can shape. It doesn't have any sharp edges, so even if I'm going under the corners next to the skin, those edges of the nail file are completely smooth. So I can even work on super short nails without worrying about cutting someone. And I can also use the grittier side of this nail file to do all of my etching. So I'm going to use this to scratch up the surface rather than thinking about buffing the nail plate. I'm going to use these irregular kind of circular motions to create a scratchy texture on the surface. And if your metal nail file gets gummed up with, just like I've shown in some of my previous YouTube videos, if you guys follow me, things like diamond bits, anything that's this kind of metal material, it can get gummed up with product or with nail or gel or debris. And so you may need to periodically dust this off if you're using this one, so you get rid of any of that gunk and then you have your gritty texture again. So it looks like I'm removing a bunch of material, but I'm actually not. I'm using very, very light pressure. Just as light as I would if I was buffing this smooth, except I'm creating this scratchiness. And I want to make sure that I'm creating the scratchiness all the way down into the sidewalls, all the way around the cuticle area, and especially on the free edge. So let me dust this off one more time and we can take a look at it. Okay. So this is really what you want to see after you've prepped a nail plate, is this scratchy white look. Even before we've cleansed it and dehydrated it, we want the nail to look scratched up. If I were to use a buffer on Herman's nail to do the same thing, to just remove the natural shine, I can do that as well. This is a 180 grit sponge buffer, but I want to show you the difference between the two textures. This is really the difference between etching and just shine removal, okay? Even if we focus on getting the skin off the nail plate, even if we do all of that, this nail, although the shine is gone, it feels smooth to the touch. This nail does not. I can actually feel the texture with my finger. And this is the ultimate nail plate that we want to put product on, because it's going to eliminate a lot of those issues like chipping, peeling, all of the separation, especially free edge separation. It's going to eliminate a lot of that so that you're not constantly reapplying product, because a lot of people, they start out with this idea thinking this is a more gentle approach. But then after so much lifting and reapplication, you end up damaging your nail way more than you would have if you just did one actual thorough etching and made sure that that product was on there. Now, if you do have nails like Herman's where you have some ridges or things, don't worry about taking out all the ridges. You do not need to do that. And as we get older, our ridges become more prominent. You don't need to worry about removing ridges. You don't need to make sure that the nail is completely one level. You just want to make sure that any areas like this, especially on the free edge, if he's got a little flat spot that I couldn't reach before, that I'm really focusing on that so that there's not any smooth areas. And you'll still be able to see his natural ridges, but everything looks nice and etched from cuticle area to free edge and sidewall to sidewall. Now, the last piece of this is going to be cleansing the nail, because we want to kill surface bacteria. We also want to dehydrate the nail plate. And so we're going to use our cleanser that is going to do both of those things. So I wet my wipe with some gel cleanser, Attain Clean, I love, just because it has no other additives in it. And I'm going to scrub this nail really well, not only to get all the dust off and make sure that I put enough of that cleanser on the nail that it's going to dehydrate really well. And if you have sweaty nails, wet nails, skin that literally just always looks moist no matter what you're doing to it, I recommend going back one more time with straight acetone and wiping down your nails and your skin right before you put product on to get rid of that extra bit of moisture that you might have in your hands. This is something that I see with certain people. And so if your skin and your nail doesn't look super chalky, especially in the sidewalls and the cuticle area, go back one more time with acetone and get rid of that excess moisture. All right, there you have it, part 1 of our retention series. I'll be covering more of this next week. So take some time to absorb this information and we'll dig into part 2 in my next video. See you guys next time.